afternoon, and welcome to Point News.
I'm Cassandra Harris.
And I'm Kay Winder. From local Pittsburgh news, an update on Point Park sports.
And what's happening overseas.
Let's get right to the point with this week's news. First off, a robbery at a local pizza place. Reporter Devin Ami has the story.
It's a fiesta after an attempted robbery over the weekend. On Sunday, around 11:30 a.m., Renee Falconer jumped behind the counter of the local pizza restaurant, armed and demanding money. Falconer was carrying a knife and a butane torch lighter, which employees originally believed to be a gun. She followed and threatened employees through the restaurant before being taken into custody. Point Park police sent information about the robbery through Point Alert, the university's emergency notification system. The notification stated, quote, Pittsburgh police had a call for an attempted robbery at Pizza Fiesta. The actor was a black female wearing a brown shirt and mask with a gun and knife. The individual was detained immediately and arrested by officers, end quote.
When I got the Point Alert, I was really stressed out because I go here all the time and I kind of know the people who work there. But it's just good to know kind of what's going on in my community, especially since it's so close to our college.
According to Allegheny County Police, Falconer is now facing charges such as robbery, 3 counts of terroristic threats, and possessing instruments of a crime.
Ushua Schools of Pittsburgh recently held a fundraiser this past Monday to raise money for better security measures and mental health resources for students. Their need for an upgrade in security came with the rising anti-Semitism acts across the United States. The fundraiser lasted for 36 hours and surpassed their goal of $150,000, with them being able to raise upwards of $650,000. Pittsburgh Regional Transit is gearing up for some major changes, including the elimination of several transit routes. Reporter Avery Jarina has the story.
Starting this Sunday, Pittsburgh Regional Transit will be changing about 54 routes and trip times. Bus and trolley lines will both be affected by the changes, including service reductions for 23 bus routes and the Red Line. Some routes to uptown and downtown will even be completely eliminated, leaving locals questioning the new changes.
I work in Oakland. I take the 61D, so hearing that that route is going to be affected is just a little bit unsettling because I'm not sure exactly, what route I should be taking now to get to work.
PRT changes its schedules 3 times a year, but this upcoming adjustment is far more extensive, with a service reduction of about 1.5%. The agency said it's for efficiency, reliability, and to make sure there are enough drivers for the routes. PRT also published a release saying it's been short-staffed since the pandemic and is offering hiring bonuses to welcome new drivers. They also added that current projections show hiring will outpace attrition this year. Before heading out on your commute, be sure to check your route on the Pittsburgh Regional Transit website or the Port Authority Ready to Ride app.
You can find out more information about PRT's service adjustments on their website.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is currently defending himself from an extradition to the U.S. from the U.K., as he's being accused of spying and espionage charges and 18 other charges by the U.S. government. WikiLeaks is a searchable database of confidential documents and anonymous sources for public knowledge. The 2 high court judges are now considering his verdict after the 2-day hearing, and the results should be announced sometime next month. He is currently in the hands of British security prison and has asked the lawyers to grant an appeal. The potential sentence could be up to 175 years in prison. Hear more about a cougar attack in Washington, the University of Colorado shooting, and the Penguins legend jersey retirement.
Take them cue and open their mics.
Today marked the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
Welcome back. Paul McCartney's Hofner bass guitar has now been reunited with him after 50 years. The German bass guitar was stolen in 1972. The left-handed guitar was McCartney's primary instrument throughout the early years of the Beatles and was then made his backup when he got a new guitar in 1963. The bass was stolen off a truck in London and has been named the Lost Bass Project since then. McCartney still plays his 1963 Hofner bass today, in concerts and in live studio recordings.
A Harvard study estimates that renters in Pittsburgh are spending 30% of their yearly salary on rent alone. The gap between income and cost of living continues to widen. The cost of rent has risen by 22% since 2001, while the average income has only risen by 2%. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro recently stated that he will continue to push towards a $15 minimum wage.
A cougar attacked 5 cyclists on a trail in Washington state on Saturday. In a statement from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, a 60-year-old female was hospitalized for non-life-threatening injuries and is in stable condition. Lieutenant Eric Oldson said, quote, "The people on scene took immediate action to render aid, and one of our officers was able to arrive within minutes to continue medical aid and coordinate transport," end quote. The 75-pound male cougar has now been euthanized, but eyewitnesses indicate that there is a second cougar also in the area.
Pennsylvania Magistrate Judge Sonia M. McKnight is suspended from her position after being charged with attempted murder and aggravated assault. The 57-year-old shot her ex-boyfriend, 54-year-old Michael McCoy, in the head as he was sleeping. The incident took place in Harrisburg on February 9th. McCoy, who is now blind in his right eye, told officials that he had returned from a restaurant that evening to find McKnight sitting in her pajamas on the couch. McCoy has been trying to get McKnight to move out of their place since the one-year relationship ended. McCoy went to bed around 11 p.m. but woke up a few hours later to extensive head pain and was unable to see. It was then that he started screaming, and McKnight began to shout, quote, "Mike, what did you do to yourself?" end quote, while having gunshot residue on her hands. McKnight called the police around 1 in the morning and claimed that she was sleeping and woke up to his screaming. According to KDKA, investigators found neighborhood doorbell videos that suggested McKnight never left the home that evening, and no one else was in the house either. The gun was registered in McKnight's name. For now, McKnight defense attorney Corey Leshner claims that McKnight is innocent and looks forward to the whole story being told.
2 students were shot and killed at the University of Colorado Springs campus on Friday, February 16th. Campus police received a call at 6 a.m. at the Crestone House in the Alpine Village area. When they arrived at 6:05, 2 students were found dead. The victims are 26-year-old Celie Rain Montgomery, who was not a student, and 24-year-old Samuel Knopp, who was a student. The suspect is 25-year-old Nicholas Jordan, who was a student at the university and was the roommate of Knopp. Jordan is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and was taken into custody on Monday morning and is being held on $1 million bond. Students received the first notice of lockdown just after 7 that morning, and shelter-in-place orders varied until around 9:36 that morning. The campus was closed on Saturday and Sunday, and classes were canceled Monday. That afternoon, a healing march was held on campus as a vigil for the students who lost their lives in the tragedy.
Alexei Navalny, Putin's biggest opponent, was found dead in prison this past Friday. Navalny was serving 18 years for extremism. Navalny supposedly felt sick shortly after taking a walk and then collapsed when medical assistance arrived. They were unable to resuscitate him. Now many countries' leaders are speaking out against his death and accusing Putin of murder. President Biden stated, quote, "There is no doubt that the death of Navalny was a consequence of something Putin did with his thugs," end quote. Protests have begun popping up in places like Moscow and St. Petersburg. As of now, protesters remain active in fighting against Russian government corruption and the wrongful death of Navalny.
Now, let's hear from our sports anchor, Anthony Cucci, about Penguins Legends Special Night.
Thanks, Cass. Sunday was a day of celebration for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they celebrated the career of Jaromir Jagr by retiring his number. Jagr becomes the third Penguin to have his number retired. Penguins players honored the Czech native by wearing wigs during pregame warm-ups, though the Pens did fail to finish the night on a high note as they lost 2-1 to the Kings.
Thanks, Anthony, and thank you for tuning into this episode of Point News.
If you want to check out more, tune into our weekly newscast every Thursday. Thank you and have a nice evening.